Welcome to today's episode, and buckle up because we're going to be diving into the world of twins, triplets and more.
The first thing I would encourage every single midwife to do is...
What are some of the kind of biggest challenges that parents of multiples face in those early months?
All the way during my pregnancy, I was super anxious because I knew this meant this was like a massively high-risk pregnancy.
Do things at the same time for them, so like nappy changes at the same time or feeds at the same time. Did that work for you? Is that something you let the families find helpful? Hello, I'm Pip, and welcome to the Midwife Pip Podcast, the home of expert information and real chats on all things pregnancy, birth, and beyond. Welcome to today's episode, and buckle up because we're going to be diving into the world of twins, triplets, and more. I am joined by Helen Peck, Head of Healthcare Engagement and Research at the Twins Trust. We'll explore this beautiful bond that multiples share, the unique challenges that parents face, and the surprising ways in which friends, family, and communities can make a world of difference. From sleepless nights and synchronized meltdowns to the heart-melting moments that only multiples can relate. We are going to be pulling back the curtain on multiples and their parenting experiences, and I cannot think of a better guest to be joining me. So welcome, Helen, and thank you so much for giving up your time to talk to us about this topic that honestly blows my mind, having had singletons.
Oh, thank you so much for having me. It's a pleasure, total pleasure.
I'm always really interested, Helen, as to how kind of people get into the kind of pockets of work that they do. And I feel like yours is so unique. So tell us about you. How did you become so involved in supporting families with, twins and triplets?
So I am a multiple mum myself. My girls are now 21.
Wow.
And when it is actually a bit of a story. When my girls are monochorionic, monoamniotic. So for those in the know, it means that they were sharing a sac with no dividing membrane. And all the way during my pregnancy, I was super anxious because I knew this meant this was like a massively high-risk pregnancy. It was my first pregnancy, so I guess I understood it was high risk, but it also in the kind of scheme of the world, I didn't really know what high risk genuinely meant because it was my first pregnancy. And so it was quite a journey. We went on quite a journey through the whole my whole sort of pregnancy experience, and then the girls decided to make an early appearance. So everything that had been planned, the C-section, everything went out the window. So it was a bit of a dramatic entrance, shall we say. But following on from that, my in-laws, friends of my in-laws, actually gave me a TAMBA membership. So Twins Trust, back in the day when my girls were born, was called TAMBA. And during the time, I mean, you're talking sort of 21 years ago, so there wasn't a huge amount of support out there for families that were expecting twins, triplets or more. I was certainly really aware that during my pregnancy, when it came to things like antenatal classes, I was told, you don't need to come to this because it doesn't apply to you. Wow. So I felt massively unprepared.
And I imagine quite lonely, Helen, actually. Like, if you felt like you couldn't relate to those others on that pregnancy journey with you.
Absolutely. And in fact, at one stage, I had been admitted to hospital because my blood pressure was really, really high. And I'd become quite friendly with one of the midwives, and she said to me, I felt so bad for you. I've asked a former patient to come in with their babies. And I remember she came in, and her she had identical twin boys, and they must have been about 2. And I was just sitting with this massive belly in a room, and it was bedlam, like absolute carnage. One was running off one way and one was running off the other. And I was sitting there going, oh my God,
I don't know if this is helpful.
God. Yeah, but the mum was really lovely. And she said to me, I know you think like, you're a bit scared about what's going to happen, but everybody will look after you. And actually that was probably the single most rewarding thing that I had during that pregnancy. So when my in-law's friend gave me a TAMBA membership, I thought, never heard of them. I need to Google and see what all this is about. And literally for about the first 5-6 months, Tamba became my lifeline, asking all sorts of silly questions, and they had like a forum back in those days. It wasn't, there was no Facebook groups, it was a forum asking all, and there was sort of like a ready-made community there of families who'd been through the same experiences wanting to help. So I became quite passionate about all things multiples. As, to be quite fair, I think most of our members do. They realise that they're on this journey, and it is quite it's an education in many ways. It's a joyous journey. I mean, I would not have changed it for the world, but it does come with its challenges. So about a year after I had joined Tamba, somebody from their head office phoned me and said, I see you live in Stirling. I see you have a background in sort of events management. We want to put together the largest gathering of twins, triplets and more in Scotland. Are you in? Could you help us? And I did. And that's where I started, literally volunteering for them. And 21 years later, I'm still here as the head of healthcare engagement and research. And I love it.
I love that. And it is, like you say, like such an important network and support to have. There's such a power in someone else going, oh yeah, me too, or I'm feeling that, and that solidarity, isn't it, in numbers, that's so helpful.
Yeah, totally.
And have you seen a rise in kind of twins and triplets and more, Helen, since kind of over your time, that 21 years that you've been working in Twins Trust? I guess fertility treatment, we know there's that higher chance. So I'm just guessing we kind of got a bit of an upward trajectory of multiples.
Yeah. So, well, it's quite interesting actually, because we there was definitely a period where there was a huge upward trajectory, and initially my role in Twins Trust was sort of running all their events and everything in Scotland. And so I was running antenatal classes, parenting classes, etc., etc. So I was quite familiar of like everybody that was coming, and the classes were getting bigger and bigger and bigger. And then at one stage, I was like, "This is incredible! Like, how is this happening?" And but then kind of sort of laterally, I think with the kind of reduction to the single embryo transfer in IVF, things started to taper off a little bit again. So it's still high, but it's nowhere near as high as it was. What we do tend to see now is more sort of higher order multiples. And again, I think that's with people maybe going abroad for IVF treatment, where they put back more than one embryo.
Yeah, when more embryos are put back, you've then got more chance of having 3 babies or 4 babies, right?
Exactly.
My goodness. Honestly, I am forever in awe of multiple parents. I remember, Helen, when I had my first little boy, he's just turned 4. I had a colleague and a friend who had twins at the same time as I had him. And then we'd be messaging like you do, messaging when you're up feeding your baby in the night. And I was just thinking, I just can't complain, because she has to do all of this twice. Like, I cannot comprehend how she is doing it. But my goodness, she absolutely smashed it. And
I do remember in the early days genuinely having a feeling that there's only one word that I can use to describe it, and that is being slightly discombobulated most of the time. But all of my friends and family just got kind of used to me running around in this sort of state of like, I was never on time for anything.
Oh, I can imagine.
But I quickly accepted that was my new norm.
Yeah.
It's fine, I will come, but I will be there when I can get there.
I'll be there when the children are ready.
Yeah, exactly. And you do get to the stage where you're kind of like, like in the very, very early days, I found it really challenging to even get out the house. And I do remember, like literally walking around the block the first day with my pram and giving myself a right royal pat on the back afterwards, because it felt like such an achievement. And I think that's it. I think it is, like in the early days, it is being proud of like the small wins, because then the small wins become bigger wins. And, over time, you learn that everything goes in phases. I fast began to learn, like, it was like every 6 months something would change, and you'd just get settled into one thing, and then they'd be sleeping, and then you'd be like, oh, this is great, they're into a pattern now, and then something would change and they'd not be sleeping again, and that was just
cut a tooth, or the moon would move an inch in the sky.
Exactly.
So for a forever changing time frame, isn't it, for sure?
Yeah, absolutely.
And I think kind of as we've spoken about, I suppose, Helen, like a multiple pregnancy as you experienced back 21 years ago comes with so much excitement, but also apprehension, because we know there is that extra kind of complexity that comes with a twin pregnancy. What should parents know? Because what I think is really important is that just because you're having more than one baby, it shouldn't mean that you don't get the same amount of care or support or, you know, antenatal education like you experience. What should expectant parents kind of know about getting the right care and support during their pregnancy? Are there anything that they should be asking their healthcare practitioners to do, or things that you have found have been really helpful in your experience?
So actually, the first thing I would encourage every single midwife to do is become familiar with Twins Trust and all the services that we offer. Because I know, obviously, healthcare engagement is my area now, and I know that there are some maternity units that are absolutely fantastic and offer multiple specific antenatal sessions, but I also know there are a lot that simply don't have the capacity just now, and that's where Twins Trust really comes into its own, because we provide antenatal sessions for expectant parents of multiples. We also have 2 new online offerings, Preparing for Twins and Preparing for Triplets, which are both like, Preparing for Twins is for twin parents, and Preparing for Triplets is especially for the triplet parents, so that they're getting something that's unique to their set of circumstances. And I think giving that information to families so that early on they do not feel isolated and alone, because nothing, as I say, like I know my girls are 21 now, but I see very little difference in me 21 years ago and the parents that I'm seeing now. They all feel exactly the same thing: excitement and trepidation about what's to come. They know they're having a high risk pregnancy, but a bit like myself, they don't really know what a high risk pregnancy is. Some of them feel really bamboozled by jargon. And they don't really know what to expect, because sometimes they're told, so your pregnancy will be different, you will be seen more times, and that's simply all the information they get. Whereas if they go to the Twins Trust website, we have an antenatal checklist which is based around the NICE guidance of what you can expect in a twin pregnancy and what should happen when, and it's just a really good tool to print off, take with you to your appointment, so you know that you should be getting, you know, if you're having an identical twin pregnancy, you will be getting more scans than if it's a monochorionic, a dichorionic twin pregnancy. And you know what additional tests that you may have, and what you can expect during the course of your pregnancy. So all these little tools are there and readily available and free to use. And I guess I would really encourage any midwife to use Twins Trust for that, because we're there to help, to be a useful tool for you guys as much as we are for the parents.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's so nice to then know that everyone's on the same page, you know, so that healthcare practitioner and expectant parents are like, right, this is a resource that we can all use to make sure that you do get those questions answered. And I think so much in today's world, because midwife appointments typically are so few and far between and so time pressured, parents will ask other parents or friends kind of, well, what was that like for you, or what was that like for you? But when there aren't as many multiple parents around you in your community,
exactly
it. Feel that same isolation that you felt, Helen, 21 years ago. And we can definitely do something to change that, and we should.
Completely. Yeah.
Now, I feel like raising one baby, Helen, is already very life-changing. So raising 2 or more at the same time is just a whole different story. What are some of the kind of biggest challenges that parents of multiples face in those early months, and what can they do to help juggle things? What's some of the advice that you find helpful?
So I guess the first thing I would say, and this is like sort of maybe the slightly less fun element of it, is be prepared. Prepare yourself as much as you can for the arrival of your babies, and learn as much as you can about things like neonatal care, what happens in neonatal care. Because I do remember one of my earliest memories was when my girls were in neonatal care, feeling a little bit frightened because I wasn't prepared. There's a lot of noise in neonatal care
Lots of
that I
beeping.
think when you're a midwife, you're perfectly used to. As a new mum, every time something beeped, I was thinking, oh no, what's wrong? When actually there was nothing wrong. I mean, the reality was there was nothing wrong. And kind of rest confident in the fact that, you know, you're the midwives are all there to look after you, and they will, and they definitely do. Because the one thing I will say is that with my experience and the experience of a lot of people around me is that the mystery and intrigue around twins and triplets and more still exists, and everybody wants to be involved with it. So that is a good thing. So make the most of that. Be prepared for when they're going to come home, in as much as I would say, if you don't already get a home delivery of food, or stock up before you go into hospital, and be prepared that you might go in early. I think from a midwife's point of view, I think understanding that, you know, obviously not everybody is a first-time mum, and some of these families have other children as well, and it can be quite challenging if your babies are in neonatal care and you're trying to juggle with other children. And also, if you have one baby in neonatal care and one at home, that can also be really hard, because that happened to us at one stage in time, and it was really difficult just getting the measure right of not being at the hospital and being with the other baby, and like Bob and I having to split up at times to like manage one being with one
Literally
baby and
feel
one
like you're splitting
being with
yourself
her.
in half.
Yeah. And it's really hard, and emotionally it's really tough, but it's worth it. Putting a positive spin on it, it's worth it, because then you come home and you go on an adventure unlike any that you will ever go on in your life. It is enjoyable, sometimes frustrating, but the best thing, just simply the best thing.
Oh, I love that. So making sure that you understand more about things like the neonatal intensive care, and what sort of care they might receive, and what that environment looks like. So when you go, and also I think how you can be involved in their care, so that although they might be in like a special care unit or a neonatal intensive care unit, but actually you're still their parent.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, and things that you can do to be involved, because we still want to have that, you know, as much skin to skin as possible, and as much bonding as possible, and to support you in your feeding choices as possible. But often you do just need that extra layer of support and care, or that extra layer of expertise and things like that then makes such a big difference in knowing where to access those people.
Absolutely. And sort of where feeding is concerned as well, I also think it's really important, because one thing that I got myself really upset about at the time was, in your head you're pregnant, and you always, I think most people do it, but you have this, like, you're so pleased that you're pregnant, and you have an image in your mind of what this wonderful world is going to be like with your babies. And then when something doesn't quite go to plan, it sort of it can kind of knock you to one side a bit. But again, I think, like with feeding, I mean, obviously, so my girls were tube fed at first, but then, to begin with, I was initially disappointed. I mean, I was pleased that they were getting fed, but I was disappointed because I had wanted to feed them myself. And I thought, oh no, this decision has been taken away from me. But actually, I worked with my feeding team, like when the girls got bigger, and I was able to breastfeed, you know, and they were actually in quite a nice routine as well by the time they came home from neonatal care, which was a joy, a total joy.
That is so true, you know. You can really tell the babies that have had like a little stay in neonatal intensive care, because they have got that structure.
They absolutely do. Absolutely. So that was good, and I was pleased, and as I say, like, I went on to breastfeed my babies, I think, for another 1.5 years when they came home, which was great, because for me, I mean, it was a personal choice, but it was also partly because for me, I wasn't the most organised, so the prospect of like sterilising, 24 bottles in a it just didn't appeal to me.
Yeah, it was more overwhelming than them directly from you. I totally get that. Yeah, I totally get that. One of the things I often hear, Helen, is around when you've got, like, twins or multiples at home, is to try and do things at the same time for them, so like nappy change at the same time or feed at the same time. Did that work for you? Is that something you that families find helpful?
Do you know what was quite unusual? And I do remember speaking to my friend of mine because I thought this was quite strange at the time again, and I think it was probably just because I'd never had twins, but I genuinely didn't expect them to both want fed at the same time. I didn't expect that to happen. I thought, what happens if one of them's asleep? And like, do I wake them? Because I got given certain books, and one of the books that I read absolutely terrified me because I was like, I cannot stick to this schedule. I'll never have a life. I will not be able to move off the sofa.
No one's going to be having fun.
Yeah, but actually, the girls are in quite a good routine when they came out, and then you just like your routine changes as they grow. Your routine just naturally sort of changes to like fall into your sort of family routine as well. So I don't know whether that was consciously or subconsciously. But I mean, I just knew, at a certain time of day, I would have to feed the girls. That would be it. They did literally. Rosie would feed, and then Mary. It was one after the other. That was always the way that I did it. I did used to put them down at the same time in the afternoon for an afternoon nap. However, Mary would fall asleep. Absolutely not a problem. Rosie was a bit like the Terminator. She did not want to sleep, and I'd be sitting downstairs and I would hear her just babbling away and, laughing, giggling away to herself. And I was like, oh, okay. But I mean, they were both great, really, really good wee.
It sounds like they had really different personalities, which I love.
They do. I mean, honestly, for identical twins, they're literally like, they are mirror image, and it is literally like they are split right down the middle. It's funny. One's left-handed, one's right-handed. I would say Mary is the more adventurous of the two. Rosie's always been slightly more guarded. Mary definitely not. She's into everything, doesn't really think about it. So it is. It's fascinating, totally fascinating. A joy to have watched them growing up. Really is.
See what I still find after I don't know, a decade and a half in midwifery, I still find it fascinating the fact that we, as females, grow and birth humans, and the idea that we can do that with more than one child at a time is just absolutely phenomenal, isn't it? Like our bodies are amazing.
And it's hilarious as well because like all through sort of primary school, I do remember at one stage when the girls were in about primary one, Mary coming home from school one day and she sat down on the sofa. She's like, "Mummy, I'm exhausted." And I was like, "Oh, why? What's wrong, darling?" And she said, "Oh, it's tough being a twin. Everybody wants to pick you up." And because they were so tiny and had really sort of this shock of blonde sort of wavy hair, and everybody just was fascinated with them and they wanted to pick them up, and Mary was just exhausted by it.
All the attention. And then like famous at school, right?
Yeah, honestly, like, and they could never do anything sort of like, surreptitiously, because they were quite easily identifiable. The only thing they did do in primary school was people say, "Oh, did they ever play tricks on the teacher?" And they did. I mean, they did.
You've got to, right?
Change their clothes around and pretend to be each other a number of times, to the point that the teachers asked us to stitch an initial on their cardigan so they could tell which one was which. And then they were just like, "You wear my cardi, I'll wear yours, it'll be fine."
No one will know. No. Oh, I mean, I feel like you've just got to, right? Like you have to take advantage of that.
Absolutely. It's a rite of passage.
Absolutely. Yeah, definitely. The teachers listening and they'll be like, "No, don't give permission to the twins to do that." Helen, one of the things I really wanted to kind of talk to you about and raise awareness about is the maternity engagement project, because I know it's something that Twins Trust is running, and it's very important and quite frankly vital for parents and navigating life with multiples. Tell us about it.
So the maternity engagement project, I am massively passionate about this. It is, in my opinion, it is one of the best resources that a hospital can take part in to ensure that they are providing the best possible care for multiple births. So in short, we have a group of specialist multiple birth midwives who work with us, and they come in and they audit the service that you are providing to multiple birth families. It's all based around the NICE guidelines, so we've got something to measure it against. And it's basically ensuring that the hospital is compliant, that you have a multidisciplinary team who are familiar with multiples, so a multiple birth midwife or a midwife who has had a lot of experience in delivering multiple birth babies, a specialist consultant with multiples, and a sonographer who's also experienced in scanning multiples. And it goes through everything, literally everything from the labelling of scans, labelling of fetuses right at the very, very beginning.
Oh, and that, as a midwife, if we can get that right, let me tell you, it makes everything 1,000 times easier.
Absolutely so crucial.
There's almost no point in scanning otherwise. Like, if we don't know which baby we're looking at each time, then it's completely pointless.
Yeah. Ensuring that babies are scanned at the correct time as well, and making sure that the parents are getting the correct information at the correct time. So, for example, if you know that they are potentially going to have a complicated pregnancy, giving them the information, the parents the information that they need by the recommended time, so that the families can be prepared. And it's great. Basically, the results from every audit that we have done, every single unit that we have audited, bar one, has made significant improvement. Neonatal admissions are significantly reduced. Stillbirths are reduced. The percentage of stillbirths that we have seen reduced with units is on average about 36%, and neonatal admissions reduces by about 66%. So
amazing.
And
that's beneficial to everybody. That benefits everyone.
Massively beneficial, yeah. And it's really reassuring for families as well to know that the hospital is doing something for their care, because I say, like, a lot of people can feel quite, as we were talking about, like, isolated and a bit bamboozled by everything that's going on. So every unit that we work with gets accredited, and we have a map on our website that shows the number of units. And I think over the last, the project started in 2017, and over that period of time, apart from the time when COVID took place, took us a couple of years to get, but we've audited over 50 units in the UK, all who have seen significant improvement, which is just phenomenal. So
that's so good. And I think what really links into that, Helen, and something that I'm passionate about, and I know you are too, is about families having a voice in their care, no matter what their journey or pathway can look like. And that's one of the real, I think, key drivers in the work that you're doing, is in terms of families not feeling like, well, because I've got a multiple pregnancy, I don't have these choices that perhaps a singleton parent does. But actually, you absolutely do, and you should still be making informed and empowered choices about your care and your pathway.
Totally. And it's making sure that, like, even though, as you say quite rightly, that you don't seem to have the same choices, but it's almost a bit like, okay, so maybe, your path might be different than somebody having a singleton person, but you can still normalise it. And I think that's really important, so important for expectant mums of multiple, so that they can feel like they are still in control and have a voice.
Yeah, they're still your babies.
So
like, they're still your babies in your body, right?
Yep, absolutely. That's the other piece of advice I would always give to somebody, is never be afraid to speak to your healthcare professional or provider, because I know a lot of some mums have come to say, I don't want to be a bother, and you want to say to them, you're never a bother. All the midwives that I know are wonderful. They're so helpful. They want to be able to be there and be that support network for you. So don't ever feel frightened about asking questions about your care. That's that should be a prerequisite of your care.
Absolutely. And I always say to families, regardless of time of day as well, there's no point me being awake all night on labour ward if you're sat in bed worrying. Like that's
Yeah,
the whole point of
absolutely.
having a 24/7 service. And
Ah,
also we understand that with a multiple pregnancy, you have been told from the get-go, this is high risk. These are the like these things could happen. This is the chance of that. We understand that
yeah,
naturally your kind of baseline anxiety is going to be slightly higher. So we are very happy
yeah,
to hear from you more, to answer more questions more often, to answer the same question in 5 different ways if that's what helps you. We are very happy to
absolutely.
provide more because we know this experience is unique.
Yeah, totally. It's really important.
Helen, everyone that comes on the podcast, I ask for 3 top tips. What would be your 3 top tips, either from your professional or your personal experience, to a multiple family who is listening to us today?
To a multiple birth family, my top tips would be most definitely, the first one is definitely do the food shopping in advance of your babies coming. Don't Just remember that as long as your babies are fed, clothed and warm, you're doing a really, really good job, and give yourself a big pat on the back if you make it out the house, even to the end of the street in your first few months. And also, it's a phase, it will pass. I remember at times when the girls were little and I was feeling completely overwhelmed, thinking, how am I ever going to get through this? And there we are 21 years later, and you've done it.
Did it get
It
easier, Helen,
will
over
pass.
time?
It gets easier for a stage, and then they become teenagers, and it changes again. It changes.
Challenges, right? Different challenges.
Yeah, it changes, and they get more expensive as they grow up. They get more and more expensive.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, so right. Helen, thank you so much for sharing, all of your amazing expertise. And to anyone listening that thinks I've not heard of Twins Trust and I need to, it is linked in the episode description. So if you are currently expecting or you've just had multiples, head straight there because it sounds like that is going to be a phenomenal place for you to gain invaluable support. Thank you so much, Helen.
Thank you so much for having me. Thank you.